What's up guys, welcome to Found Flicks. It's hard to believe that Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer is celebrating its 20th anniversary this week, having first premiered on March 10th, 1997. And even after 20 years, the show is still extremely popular and regarded by many critically as not just one of the best horror TV series of all time, but one of the best TV series, period. And held in the same echelon as golden age of TV shows like The Sopranos and Mad Men. But is it possible that a show about a ditzy vampire slayer that aired on the WB can really stand toe-to-toe with the greatest shows ever made? The short answer is yes. I wouldn't say it's the best show ever, but absolutely is the best horror TV series. I'm sure there's already a bunch of you commenting below about why I'm wrong, and that's fine. This is only my opinion. You have yours? We cool. So while I do genuinely love plenty of other horror series for a variety of reasons, Buffy pulls off so much successfully, and as a result, it stands head and shoulders above all others. Buffy is a dense show full of many layers that reveal themselves on multiple watchings. Even academics have found the show multidimensional and worthy of dissection, as it trades heavily on allegory, myth, and cultural references. Yes, there are actual academic courses on the analysis of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We're already starting to see the show has a lot going on beyond some girl stabbing vampires. The show is very creative and entertaining in its approach, and a lot of this is due to geek god and show creator Joss Whedon. He's a very clever writer with a distinct voice, which is seen throughout his works. Things like witty dialogue, a bickering family dynamic, and killing off fan favorite characters. Even the Avengers features all of these trademarks, and these trademark styles of his were first introduced and honed way back in Buffy. The idea of a teenage vampire slayer itself is already unique, and we learn a lot about what Joss envisioned in his very original germination of an idea for the character. Essentially, the character is a flip on standard horror conventions. As Whedon said, typically in horror films we have a blonde girl get killed in an alley, but what if instead this time she killed the monster? It is this twist on horror conventions that so much of the series stems from. It is doing a new take on the genre and playing with horror's expected tropes. However, the show doesn't only twist the genre's roots and is quite reverential to the horror genre, referencing many classics in various episodes. So it's not entirely about exposing the tropes and being meta with horror conventions to the extent of, say, Scream, but more about it being modern, well, somewhat modern take on what came before. This is apparent even in the wonderfully 90s theme song itself. We hear a howling werewolf, there's strange ancient looking symbols everywhere, and a low organ rumbles, very reminiscent of classic horror. Then it kicks into the much more modern guitar-based theme that we all know for the remainder of the opening. This is to show us that it will be a modern take on the genre, but also won't forget where it came from. The show manages this balance very well, as it is able to create straight horror, and also play with our preconceived ideas of what we might expect in the genre. And it's just awesome that they put that much thought into the theme song itself. Another unique aspect to the show is that it has a very heavy female empowerment angle to it, and we see throughout the seasons that the female characters we meet are actually typically portrayed as much stronger than the more passive roles male characters take in the show, like the supportive buddy of Xander or the father figure of Giles. Once again, Buffy flips the conventions of what we might expect, having the females rather than the male be the stronger characters. And it's not just horror tropes the show plays with, as many times it is a mishmash of a ton of genres, with a lot of times comedy and romance being thrown into the mix as well. I mean, Twilight wishes that their vampire romance with that sparkly bitch could hold a candle to Buffy and Angel. Not even close, bud. Their forbidden romance is one of the biggest arcs in the show and is done with real drama and stakes. And in the end, Buffy has to make a tough decision for the better of humankind, rather than considering her own feelings. It's just perfect drama. It's simply that the high quality of the writing and storytelling comes together so consistently well in the show. And I just love when a show has a rich mythology that you can really chew on as a viewer. Buffy does this well and expands its scope with each season. When a show is able to build a complete living universe like Buffy, it's always an impressive thing to experience. And unlike most horror shows that came before it, Buffy is highly serialized, with a season-long big bad foe and a case of the week procedural format. By being highly serialized, it allows us to really dig deep into the characters and understand what they're feeling throughout the course of the story. By spending time with the characters and focusing on them in addition to the main story, we care more about who these people are, and it makes us develop even more personal stakes for them outside of whatever evil threat they are facing. pacing. Another crucial core concept that adds a deeper layer to the storytelling, especially in earlier seasons, is the idea of high school as hell. So not only do we see relatable problems of teenagers at that age, but also see them dealing with actual monsters. But the monsters a lot of times have more meaning beyond the surface. Monsters are used in the show as a metaphorical stand-in for the real struggles and problems faced in high school. Vampires are sexual predators, werewolves represent our bodies going out of control, and witches tap into the idea of female sexuality being seen as threatening. Several of the episodes tackle important issues faced by real high school kids this way, and it is that extra layer to the stories that helps Buffy stand above others. And it's also this deep allegorical aspect to the show that led academics to analyze the episodes and pick them apart to learn their true meaning. Now let's move on to what to me is the secret ingredient of the show's longevity and success: the characters. All the characters are well written and important to the show's dynamic. But it is not just the Scooby Gang, as they are known, that shine. There's tons of other characters that are awesome and benefit the show immensely. For example, one of the greatest characters in TV history, the vampire Spike. Even from his introduction alone in season 2, you know he's gonna be a badass. He first rolls into town in his 50s car and runs right over the sign for Sunnydale. And there's a nice extra layer to him running over the Sunnydale sign. He's literally running over Sunnydale, which nicely describes Spike's MO. He's here to start some shit and literally destroy the town. Just from this opening bit, we know so much about the character. It's really impressive. And other characters added that show up down the line, like Faith, another Slayer, Anya, a vengeance demon, and Tara, a witch that dates Willow, are welcome additions that further expand the Scooby Gang and the show into compelling and sometimes heartbreaking new directions. But it's not just the characters being well written and fleshed out that makes them special. It's that they grow as characters over the course of the show. This is something many shows struggle with: what direction to take characters as the show goes on. Most of the time they entirely avoid growing them from where they started, but that is not the case with Buffy. They start season 1 in very different places than they wind up in season 7. Buffy begins as wanting to be a normal teenager and struggling with her destiny as the chosen one, and by the end has embraced who she is and is leading a group of other Slayers. And most of the cast get these huge arcs that dramatically change their character. Spike too, who starts as a villain, also sees major growth and changes throughout the series, even into the spin-off Angel. Or something as simple as the other members of the Scooby Gang can't really help fight from a physical standpoint for several seasons. So it's not like they just hang out with Buffy for a little while and can suddenly kick ass. They're still real teenagers after all. And so it makes sense that they still can't put up a fight. I feel like most shows would have made them just suddenly turn into complete badasses after 8 episodes. You know what I mean? But Buffy is more committed to long-term story arcs. Seeing these characters grow is what makes us care about them so much. And since a lot of the show is focused on these characters' struggles, we relate to them and feel like we are right there along with them every step of the way. And thanks to them being given strong character arcs to develop over the seasons, it is very satisfying to see progress as you watch. Honestly, I feel like there's still so much more to say about what makes this show great, but I feel like I presented a solid number of reasons as to why Buffy continues to be worthy of its place as the greatest horror TV show of all time. So maybe you've never heard of the show before, and now you're like, wow, Foundflix, I really want to watch it. Here's something important I have to point out if you're new to the show, or maybe you've seen a few episodes and found you had trouble getting into it. The show is visually dated, and this can make it feel inaccessible as a result to new viewers. Though to me, the cheap 90s look only adds to its charms. This has to do with the show having an extremely tight budget, as it was on a lower tier broadcast network. And the series was filmed in 16mm, which is half the size of the standard 35mm of big screen movies. So it just looks a bit grainy, especially in darker scenes. Also, the show was broadcast in 4:3, and the visual effects were done at this frame size and resolution as well. But now on Netflix and other streaming services, the show is blown up and presented in 16:9, which was never the intention when they were filming. So the expanded frame size in the streaming versions isn't really beneficial, and it actually exposes cameras and other equipment and shots, and a lot of times just ruins the nice framing. Just something to keep in mind. But don't let the dated look deter you from watching the show. The show is absolutely worth watching for a multitude of reasons, even if visually it can't compete with modern shows. And by season 3 or so, it starts looking much better anyway. What do you guys think? Is Buffy worth the decades of fan worship and acclaim? And make sure to let me know your favorite horror series in the comments. What makes it the perfect show to you? Alright guys, thanks for watching Foundflix. See you next time.